All right, everybody, this is Sheets, and I'm going to be doing the breakdown for the MMA card, which, for those of you that weren't aware, it starts very early on Saturday. It starts at noon Eastern time. So hopefully you guys get this in time and realize that it's an early go after it, which is just fine by me. I'll probably be able to actually watch some of it. I usually can't watch the Saturday night cards. I'm usually out. So this time I'll actually be able to watch some of it, which could be interesting. So with that said, it is a nearly impossible card from a DFS perspective. I'm going to give you, and I've spent a lot of time on it. I'm going to give you my breakdown. I'm going to tell you what I like, what I'm doing, but I'll just tell you in advance, it's very, very difficult. Normally, you get like three or four races, 3 or 4 fights that have good inside the distance numbers that you can key off of. And sometimes you have these really good live dogs. Today, I'm telling you, with the 14, now, was it 15 fights, 13 fights, whatever it is, the person who wins this is going to win it by themselves, I think, and they're really going to earn it. I mean, because this is very, very difficult. So let me just give you my take, and I'll let you guys decide what to do with it. But again, this is true DFS. This is transparency, and if I'm going to be transparent, I'm going to tell you this is very, very, very hard. Because, I mean, look, when you go through these, usually you get, as I mentioned, several fights with, really, really strong inside the distance props, and you just don't see it. So, like, right from the bottom, we're going to look at, say, fight doesn't go to decision. This is a plus 160 for a big favorite like this. Then there's, well, we don't have to go through all of them. I'm going to highlight the ones that I think are good. So this one, Knight versus Da Unjung. This is one of like the 2 good fights. You'll see fight doesn't go to decision is minus 210, under 2.5 rounds, about a pick 'em or so. So this is a fight that you want to key. And the good thing about this fight from a key perspective is that the styles match. In other words, Da Unjung is a huge guy. He's like a striker. So if he wins, he could win in the first round. And, obviously, on a card like this, I'm telling you, if you get a first round KO, you are in such great shape, because I just don't think that the scores are going to be that easy to come by. And on the other hand, if you take Knight is going to probably win by getting a lot of takedowns and wrestling, which is very friendly to DK scoring. The types of fights that are not friendly to DK scorings are the ones that you get strikes and not much else and no knockdowns. So this one sets up rather nicely. And then you go through them, and there's really nothing. I mean, just to give you an example, I mean, Griffin, Soledano, fight doesn't go to decisions, a favorite, plus 130. This one's actually not bad. Shore, oh, that's really good. Escobar's hit a home run. This one's okay, I guess. Not even though. This one, Garnot's a big favorite, but this can't get anywhere. Fight doesn't go to decision, plus 170. Maybe the Selecki one, does that have a decent one at least? No, it's like pick'em. These are just awful. These are just awful fights from a DFS perspective. How about the Perry fight even? Close at least. I guarantee you the women's fight's not going to look good there. Nope. How about Marquez Alvi? That has a shot. Okay, so this one at least doesn't go to decision, minus 150. This one has a shot. Okay. Alan Yusuf, probably a snooze fest. Yep. Then you get to these last 2, not in this order, but De Castro rates to be, these are heavyweights, so this ain't going anywhere. So this will finish inside the distance. So this is another one that you can look to. Okay. And then the main event. The main event is basically, in my opinion, is a stone lock to be in the optimal lineup, just because there's like so few other spots that can generate 100 fantasy points, or the rate to finish 100 fantasy points, that this fight is just perfect for it, because Vittori is a huge favorite, and the way the styles work out is if he wins, he's just going to grind out Holland for 3, 4, 5 rounds, get his carload of takedowns and ground and pound and all that stuff and control time that's going to just pile up points over 4 or 5 rounds. And if God forbid Holland, not God forbid, but if Holland wins, and he certainly can, it's going to be by a KO. And even if it's not by a KO, I mean, he's so cheap that if he wins, he's going to be in the optimal also. So there's that one. So you basically have, so how many fights did I say? So you have De Castro, you have the Hollands, and you have the Knight, right? So with only 3 key fights, you're going to have to try to find some good long shots, some good underdogs to put in here. Like, for example, let's just say I put those guys in. So Vittori, and let's even put the cheaper of that Knight thing in there. So let's put in Knight, actually. And then we put in De Castro, for example. Now you could put in the underdog, but let's just put in De Castro for the time being. And I will probably play a little Danho because these heavyweights just have a lot of variance to them. So when you have this is a weird amount to have left. Hopefully you find, see, this is what happens here is you can, even if you find 2 good long shots, then you'll either need to find a third or you have to play that 8,200 fight, which would be probably the women's fight. So that would be Dern and Nunez. So it's a tough card from a construction perspective and a tough card from a analysis perspective. Let me just give you a couple of thoughts of like which fights I'm going to just take shots on, I suppose. This fight's canceled, Blanchfield Dermont. This first one, now for those of you that remember, Casagni, he lost on probably the knockout of the year, which was at the hands of Joaquin Buckley. Casagni actually intercepted a kick, but then Buckley did this incredible knockout of him, and he's now going to be known as the recipient of that knockout for quite some time, which is a little bit annoying for him. And it's just that Vegas really doesn't believe that this is going to be finished, That's why the fight goes to decision is plus 160 or minus 190. So to have a price tag of 9,600 or whatever, it's really tough to pay off that price tag given those odds there. So that's tough. Jung Knight, I think I must have at least alluded to this, or at least read between the lines. I'm probably going to be pounding on this fight, probably take both sides. So Jordan Griffin. So here are the 2 guys that I like as underdogs, and both for the same reason. Not particularly great finisher, you know what I mean? There's not a great inside the distance prop or anything like that, but there are 2 things here. So you look at Jordan Griffin and also Mike Perry. So the 2 of these guys are both Griffin is plus 105. Mike Perry is plus 120, both very, very small underdogs. But when you look at the DraftKings pricing, you have one of those situations where they're priced as if they were like probably plus 160 or so. So you're getting Griffin at 7,600, which makes for a very strong equity play. And likewise, maybe even better. Well, we're about the same actually. You're getting, you could play where's Mike Perry at 7,400 as a really good equity play. So those are 2 underdogs that I like just for no other reason than I think they're just kind of mispriced. And that that's as good enough reason as anything. So let me then attack some of these other underdogs from kind of an analysis perspective. I mentioned earlier that Danho at 6,800. Well, let's go from the bottom. So Kevin Holland in the main event, I do think he's live. I really do. I think that he kind of lost his mind in this last fight, but was trying to trash talk a little bit, and who knows, maybe Vittori is like susceptible to getting trash talked into fighting a bad fight. I mean, it's possible. And Holland, he's been, I think, one of the more active, if not the most active fighter during COVID. He loves to get in there. And there was one fight I saw where he was just on his back and he just started throwing these elbows off his back and just knocked the guy right out from his back. It was like amazing. So yeah, I mean, he certainly deserves to be a huge underdog. He wasn't training for this fight and all this stacked against him, but at 6,600 on a card where, you get a big score like that, or a regular score out of a 6,600 guy, it's really going to be a huge thing. So I'm definitely going to try a little of him. I don't think that it's a case where you could play both of them in the same lineup. Although maybe I'll do that just for one, just for kicks. The problem though is that again with 14 fights or 13 fights, the chances that you're going to get enough points out of a loser to win the slate is very, very slim, because it's just likely that somebody gets 100 points in these other games. So that's him. I'm not going to play the Paletnikov. I'm going to play maybe a little bit of Donho. I always like to play a little bit of the heavyweight underdog, just because anything can happen with these guys. Holtzman, I'm not playing. Jim Miller, you can play, because he at least, so he's probably not going to win. But the thing is, if he does win, it's probably going to be in the first round. So those are the types of guys that can win tournaments for you. They're also the guys that could just destroy your lineup immediately. But I definitely will try some of that. Alvi Marquez, I'm really on the border, honestly, of what I want to do with this fight. It's possible that and this is really, maybe you take a shot with Alvi at 7,200. The problem is he doesn't throw a lot of volume, but he does counterpunch rather nicely. So again, if Selecki comes in and thinks he can do whatever he wants, which he should be able to, I mean, it's possible Miller just catches him with something. If Marquez just thinks he can come in and do whatever he wants, then it's possible Alvi just catches him with something, because Marquez kind of stinks. So I might try a little bit of Alvi. That could be an underdog. I could try that. I'm not going to go for this McDessie fight. Mike Perry, I already talked about. I don't think I'm going to go with the Azure. Yeah, actually, I might. He might be live also, because the thing about Jack Shore is definitely on the way up, but this is a tough test for him. He's moving up in class, and it's just a lot of unknowns. So with that said, I mean, Azure certainly could be a live underdog. We just don't know. Because Shore's been fighting really low-level contenders, and Azure's is better than the guys that he's been fighting, so you just don't know if this is legit. So that's for me enough to just kind of maybe dip my toe into Azure. I like Shore a little bit as kind of a pivot. He's a little bit cheaper than these 9,200 guys. So maybe I'll play a couple lineups with him. Okay. Talked about Griffin again, equity play. Here's another one. So Allen versus Yusuf. I think Allen's a live dog also. Not the greatest in the world. Again, that's why he's an underdog. But I will definitely throw him in a little bit. Dern Nunez. The thing about Dern, which is intriguing, is that if in fact she is going to win, it's going to be via submission, I think. So maybe that makes her somewhat live. And again, I'm not intentionally just giving you all the underdogs. There's a couple I'm fading, but that's just the way that this card is shaking out tonight or today. So Dern is fine. I don't think I'm going to go the opposite way. And Nunez, well, remember the one construction where you can use Nunez is the one I kind of described, where if you get two underdogs, right, and you don't want to play a third, maybe you could play Nunez at 8,300. That's the one time I'll get her in. Yusuf, I'm not going to get in. Saldana. The problem is that Griffin is a really good equity play, so I don't want to go against him. But Saldana does have the finishing upside. So maybe I'll put Saldana in the same category as like Nunez, like someone I'll play if the construction leads me there, but not someone I'm going to prioritize. Like I'd much rather have Jung in almost every variation than playing Saldana or Nunez. Sure, we talked about Rodriguez, I guess, is fine. So this is that fight that I talked about where I think Perry is a good long shot. And the other thing I'll tell you about Perry, and again, I just started really watching MMA this year, but I'm starting to learn a little bit. And I watched Perry's last fight against Tim Means, and he eventually got kind of like chewed up, but he actually had a chance to submit Means in the first round. If you talk about chaos theory, if his choke, which he had landed, was like 1 centimeter better, like Tim Means would have tapped out, Perry would have probably been a huge favorite in this fight. So just because Means did a great job to survive that first round and then ended up kicking his ass after that, it changes everything. So I do think that Perry is very live here. I don't know if I'm going to go with Rodriguez. But again, it's the same type of thing. Like if you want to pivot off these 90, 9,100 guys, I mean, he's certainly okay. I don't think Bahamodes is going to get there for me. Talked about Marquez already. And the Selecki, again, he's a 9,100 guy who's fine. But I just think that you'd rather take these types of guys like Vittori or De Castro. And the problem is really difficult if you play a 93, 9,100. So now you got to play 3 of those long shots, which is fine. But it just, the chances of succeeding is just very small. And we talked about Casagne already. Gamrot is a very safe play, but he's just not going to get there. I mean, he's got a very bad inside the distance prop. He's going to grind Holtzman away, and he's going to win. But I don't think he's going to win enough to warrant that price tag, and that's the issue. So it's a lot of fights, a lot of variables, which I just kind of laid out for you. If you play this card, I do think that if you could play 150 lineups, that it's probably a good card to do that, just because you get a lot of combination that you're going to want. But I mean, since I'm not the guy that's going to play 150 lineups, for me, it's very, very difficult. Some cards I think are really good 150, or some are really bad 150 max contests, and those ones are usually pretty good for me. And this one's probably better for the 150 maxers, if you want to know the truth. But I'm going to still play. I'll probably play 20 lineups. And I'm just resigning myself to the fact that I'm probably not going to get the right combination, but hopefully using, the logic that I went over with all these fighters, maybe you can come up with something. That's pretty much all I have. Enjoy the morning MMA fights or the noon MMA fights, wherever you're located, and good luck to you.